Welcome to Life in Business, the podcast for business owners who want the confidence to grow without having to hustle 24/7. I'm Libby Langley, your host, award-winning no BS business coach and Amazon best-selling author. Join me each week to learn simple and practical strategies for growing your business, growing your profits, growing your confidence, and for having fun in business too. Here's this week's episode. Hello, Libby Langley here with another episode of Life in Business, and today we're talking about loneliness. I know, don't be sad. This is gonna help you. The reason I wanted to talk about loneliness is because, well, I haven't before, and I think that that's quite remiss of me because, oh my giddy aunt, it's a very, very real thing of being a solo business owner. And even for people like me who really like their own company, it's I can see how easy it is to just never see any other people and not shut yourself off totally from the outside world, but kind of build your own reality, right? Which on the one hand is amazing and is great and fantastic. On the other, it's like, yeah, is that right? Is that right? The outside world does exist. So what I want to talk to you today is about ways that you can kind of you can combat loneliness, I guess. But our starting point is to acknowledge that it exists and that it is a real thing. And I think one of the reasons for that is because as solo business owners, which I am one, I've had a team, I've had an office, but for the last 8 years of running my business, I've done it alone, right? I've worked from home and I've done it alone. And it can feel kind of isolating, You'll see things like Christmas dues for people who don't have Christmas dues because they don't work in an office. And there's kind of things like that exist, right? Which is lovely. And ways of kind of pulling together. So it is an acknowledged thing, but I don't think the actual full reality and the potential severity of it is actually kind of discussed enough and shared enough. And one of the reasons that I guess I've been prompted to do this, to record this episode, is because recently my husband started a new job, which means he's away like 4 days a week. He tends to go away really early, like 5:30 on a Monday morning, and he comes back 7:30 or so, 8:00 on a Thursday evening. And it was a choice that we consciously made. It's a fantastic job. He loves his job. Well, he does at the time of recording anyway. No, he loves his job. And we kind of knew that it was going to be a challenge, right? Because we are a couple that does everything together. We love being together. We look forward to spending time together. We always think about if there's anything happening, it's with the other person that we want to do it. We're very kind of insular, I guess, as a couple like that. And so having that removed has been quite interesting. Let's just say that. Probably, he's obviously had to get used to staying in an Airbnb 3 nights a week and a new work team and that, but he's with people, right? He's with people and he's with a new challenge. And me, still being at home, working alone from home, which I've done daytimes for years, right? But there's been generally speaking, someone coming home at night. And not having that I think has kind of made me feel slightly differently about it and perhaps crave a little bit more human interaction than I would have done before because I'm dead happy on my own, right? I like it. I amuse myself. But when it's for 4 days straight and the only interaction that you get is with your clients, who again, I adore, right? But it's kind of different. It's in the position of responsibility, right? And yeah, so I thought, do you know what? Actually, this has probably shown me how other people feel because Yeah, I mean, I could spend, lockdown was great, right? We just shut ourselves off from the world and spent the time with the two of us, and that was quite happy. We were very happy with that. So I don't need kind of interaction in the sense that a lot of other people need interaction. And I know there are extroverts out there who just kind of really struggle with working for themselves from home because of the lack of interaction, often the lack of kind of human contact. And I'm not one of those, right? As an introvert and autistic and all this, I'm not. But yeah, the change in life that we've had in our house recently has made me think, do you know what? I think we probably need to talk about this bit a bit more, normalize it, and here come up with some solutions, right? Solutions? Yeah, mitigations, I guess. So, running a business solo can feel kind of strangely isolating for a number of reasons. There obviously is the physical aloneness, which I've talked about, and I think that that's kind of coupled with the responsibility that you have as solo business owner. So you're responsible for everything, right? You do the marketing, you do the sales, you do the delivery, and you probably do a lot of the admin. You're the one who carries the vision, who has the vision and carries the vision, and you're also the one who holds yourself accountable, right? You have to be both deliverer and cheerleader, and that can be quite tough sometimes. It can be quite tough sometimes. I mean, obviously, too long didn't read, right? To get some support, work with a coach or somebody who can help you. But if loneliness creeps in when you're trying to wear all those hats, then it just isn't a sign that you're failing. And that can be something that we think. I know that for me, that is when I start to question everything. And I know it's a kind of symptom, quirk of my neurodiversity, that catastrophizing is something we're extremely good at. And without any kind of external contact, that's quite easy to do, right? Because it's when you just walk down the street and you realize, everybody else is just walking down the street, that you kind of feel better or have conversations with people in the same boat. And this kind of this knowing that it's not a sign that you're failing, it's all just part of the solo ride. It's all just part of the journey that you're on, that I'm on, that everyone else who works for themselves is on. And I share my own experiences because I'm kind of not afraid to talk about it, right? I mean, my business is successful. I have tons of happy clients, past and current. I make decent money, and I've got a lovely business and all of that. I do keynote talks on big stages and all of that. But it doesn't mean that I'm immune to all the things that people who aren't quite yet at the same, the same level of experience and achievement in business are, right? All still flipping human here. So it's more common than you think, and lots of us feel it. So I think that one of the reasons that it feels different as a solo business owner is there aren't the kind of subtle, the nuances that you get in an office, right? There are so many positives of working in your own space for yourself, in that you can just control your own time and get stuff done much more quickly, so you can go off and enjoy life instead. In an office, 9 to 5, blah, 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 blah. That we all know kind of how that feels. However, there are, in an office with other people, there are regular social interactions, such as the kind of, did you see that on telly last night? Just the mundane on the surface interactions, but actually it's those interactions that are quite important. For me, I get a lot of that stuff from social media. I do. I talk to a lot of people on social media, but it's typed, right? It's not seeing someone in the flesh. And I think that is, there is a kind of subtle difference there. But particularly on Threads, I have some fantastic just chats about nothing with people. and it does make you realize that there is a world out there, but without that kind of bypassing of stuff. I can tell you something now that I do sometimes, which is, I don't know, I think it must be a very neurodivergent thing to do. But sometimes, so- sometimes I go to Marks and Spencer's because when you walk in, there's always a member of staff just standing by the door and they say hello to you and I say hello back and how are you today? And then I go and touch things. Oh, I shouldn't be sharing this. It just makes me sound like I've got a screw loose. But I go and touch things because I think one of the things that I've realised that I kind of miss when it's just me is that I don't feel different textures because I'm used to my surroundings, right? So I go to M&S and I touch all the jumpers and see how soft they are or how fluffy they are. And it's weird, isn't it? But we all have, I probably shouldn't have shared that with you because it does sound utterly deranged. But I think the reason that I wanted to share it with you is that, you know, loneliness can kind of manifest itself in lots of different ways. It's not necessarily an inner feeling of loss. It can be interaction, you know, physical touch interaction too, right? So there you go, top tip, get yourself to M&S and touch some jumpers. And the point of kind of not being in the office is that you don't have these kind of little casual chats and you don't necessarily have that kind of, oh my God, this just happened. And everyone goes, yay. And then you all kind of move on. Because when you're on your own, that doesn't exist. And, you know, your cat or your dog is like really enthusiastic, but doesn't know what's going on. So there are, you know, that's another reason that this can happen. So that's why the person, the greeter in Marks and Spencer's is just so nice to kind of just go and smile at, right? And this all can take a toll on your motivation as well as your mental health, right? Loneliness doesn't just feel uncomfortable. It can start to mess with your head, particularly when you're kind of left to stew on your own about things. And it's really easy to spiral into self-doubt or to overanalyze every little thing. And that's dangerous territory, right? So that's when getting out or having a Zoom call or something that breaks that cycle. That's so important. But with the most important thing is that you recognize what's happening, right? And that's when I go to M&S. But it takes me a lot of effort, right? Leaving the house I find quite challenging because I'm autistic ADHD and the world is full of unknowns, right? But it takes quite a lot of effort. But I go to somewhere that I'm comfortable with, that I know I can park outside, you know, all this stuff that minimizes the anxiety that the outside world can bring, because the positives of doing it negate the negatives, right? And that's really important for you to learn and understand about yourself. And self-awareness is a massive part of all of this, right? Just acknowledging what's happening and thinking, how can I make this different? However odd it sounds when you say it out loud, right? This is you, so you do you. Who cares what it is, right? If it makes you feel better. And the reason, you know, a reason that it kind of all this can take a toll on your motivation and mental health is it really just kind of saps your energy, right? And that's what makes motivation wane. So recognizing it all is a really big step, and it helps you stop viewing it as there's something wrong with you, right? And instead just see it as a natural part of the solo business journey, which it absolutely is. And do you know what? Do you know why? Because you're a human, right? So trying to not be a human is going to be very, very difficult. I would say probably impossible, right? And why would we want to? So all these lovely things, this rich mix of things that make us human, we've got to embrace them, yeah? And find our own ways of coping and dealing with them. So how can you create connections and build a support system? Okay. You can find things like business buddies, right? There could be a peer in a similar industry or a similar stage of business who kind of get it and understand it. And they don't need to be local, right? Not this. Thankfully, the world is easy to access now because everything is online if we want it to be. So you can have Zoom calls with people. A few years ago, quite a few years ago now, so maybe 2016 or something, there was a a business owner that I'd known for quite a while, and we used to sometimes do. Were they Google Meets then? I think they were called, and we used to like log in together and just kind of work. We would maybe talk. You'd take a phone call so you could hear the other person on the phone. It like being in an office. And I wrote a blog about it at the time. My blog doesn't exist anymore, but I wrote a blog about it. You don't have to be lonely when you work alone. And it was really quite interesting because that's quite a long time ago. But yeah, we used technology then just to feel a bit more connected. And we probably only did it half a dozen times, but it did make a difference, and it did work. And one thing now, knowing about my neurodiversity, is that shadowing is a thing, right? So shadowing is when there's someone else there and it just helps you to get things done. They're not necessarily even doing anything. They could be reading a book in the corner, but because there's someone else there, sometimes that can be enough, right? So you could do something like I just open a Zoom call and nobody speaks. You just kind of get on with working, and it can motivate you and move you forward. And also online connections, like people on LinkedIn or people on Instagram. There's people you can chat to. There's people who you can say, send me a meme because I'm having a rubbish day. Facebook groups. There's lots of things like that to just make you realize that you're kind of not alone in all of this. And then, of course, there are business communities, like my Confidence to Grow coaching space. One of the things it does is we have twice weekly calls. So twice weekly, you're with other people who care about you and support you. And the WhatsApp group is, just to share the good stuff and the bad stuff. So there are communities like that, paid communities like that exist, that are absolutely invaluable to people. So you can join something like that too, as well as all the unpaid free options around there. And have a VA or something like that too. I have a VA who's fab. And we didn't have many live calls to start with. Oh, but I don't know maybe we've been working together for a year. Can't remember really. And it's only recently that I've said, do you know what? Fortnightly calls would be really helpful. Not because there's anything to say, but because we get to know each other a bit better. We talk about stuff that's not necessarily work related, and it's just helpful in terms of growing the business, feeling connected. And to me, that's kind of an important part of the support services that we employ, right? Just being able to have that connection really, really matters. So there's lots of people that you can do that with. And the important thing about a VA or someone you outsource to is that they have a vested interest in making it work. Therefore, you can bounce ideas off them for the things that they're meant to be doing. And it makes it feel like you've got you're part of a team, right? A mini team. And it can reduce that it's all on me pressure, which is a big thing of the loneliness, right? I'm on my own, and I'm on my own with everything. So having someone out there, even if they only do a couple of hours a month, even if they just have a Zoom call with you once a month, it's something, right? And having a coach or mentor, of course, is very, very important. Someone who's in your corner, who's been there, done that, understands it, can be absolutely game-changing. I've worked with some fantastic coaches in the years I've been in business, and I know that as a coach myself, I make a big difference to the clients that I work with because I provide that safe space, that dose of accountability, that fresh perspective, It's like, no, this isn't the reality. Let's talk it through and help to kind of give a slightly different view on things, which can be really helpful. And also remind you that you're not alone, right? And, coaches like me, we can help you see what you might be missing, or just simply offer this safe space to talk things through, which I just think is worth its weight in gold, really, right? Now, what about some practical steps? I've talked about a few, kind of alluded to a few of these already, but you can schedule accountability check-ins with another person, right? So you can agree that on the first of every month, you're going to have an hour-long call, and you're both going to go through with each other the things that you said you were going to do and the things that you're going to do, right? And do a kind of catch-up like that. The hesitancy with that is because neither of you is paying the other person. It's very much reliant on trust and goodwill and all of these things. And if they're not experienced in whatever you might be having challenges with, then, the feedback isn't necessarily going to move you forward. However, this accountability of like, right, let's commit to get some shit done. So we book a call and we get the shit done, and then we report back to each other. That could be really useful, right? And you will probably know someone that you can do that with, just as the accountability. It's the same sort of thing as the being on a Zoom call where you're not really talking to each other, you're just there. Can be really useful, that. And networking, right? Networking, I think is an important thing to do in business. In person is good because you literally see people's legs, right? You're not just shoulders and a head. And there are some great local networking meetings all over, all over everywhere. Some are tiny and free. Some are bigger, more structured, have a cost to them. So find something that suits you, and you will meet kindred spirits. You will get out, you'll have a bit of a laugh, you might get some useful business information, you might get some clients, right? Networking has always been great for me to bring clients into my business. However, I've always thought that it was more than that for me. I've always thought that it was a way to, remind myself that there is a world out there and kind of make business friends and get to know people in the local area and all that stuff. So I've always found networking really, really, I would say, invaluable to me when I had a team or not. And even when I had a job before I started the business, I've always done a lot of networking, and it's always paid dividends. Even like the rubbish ones that you never go back to. It's people get to recognize you, and you just feel like you kind of you're a bit more part of things, part of a community. So always very, very helpful. And there are online ones too, of course, which are fantastic. But there is something different about meeting people in person still, face to face, because you get to, I don't know, you just get to be in the same air as them. And I think there's an element of that that's sometimes needed when you work on your own and your client work is online and all of these things. So getting out and just talking about business with people is helpful. So I mean, you can go and work from a cafe as well if you want. You can meet people for lunch, obviously, or maybe even like join a co-working space if there's something like that for you. You might find that just going there for an hour or two a week actually is kind of all you need. And you can make it a routine. You can make it part of your week and part of your structure, and that might be the little midweek boost that stops you kind of spiraling into this loneliness and stops you feeling disconnected and disenfranchised and all of these things. All of these things, and wondering what's wrong with you and just spiraling into doom. Can be very, very helpful. Or if all else fails, go to Marks and Spencer's and touch some of the jumpers. I can't recommend it highly enough, honestly. It's fantastic. But make sure your hands are clean, because this is stuff people's going to buy, right? And one thing to make sure that you are celebrating, right, is to build in some kind of celebratory ritual that you could have a sliding scale of it, right? You complete a task that you really didn't want to do. Woo! What's my celebration there? Maybe you have a dance for 5 minutes, get some endorphins going. You get a new client. Woo! What's my celebration there? Maybe you phone someone. Maybe you phone your other half or a friend, or post something on social media, but to publicly, or obviously share it in a coaching space if you're in a program like My Confidence to Grow, then people will go, yeah, run around the room screaming in delight for you. But make sure that you share those wins, whether they're big or whether they're small, and so that it just doesn't get glossed over, right? Because it's easy when you're on your own to go, Oh, yeah, great. Yeah. Right. What was I doing? And it's like, no, 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 no. We need to celebrate these big and these small wins because they're the reason that we do this, right? The things that make us happy, we have to acknowledge the happiness of them. And by just going, yeah, great, next, it makes it harder to maintain that kind of mood and stuff. And also, it really emphasizes the loneliness. Yeah. Even if you just shout in your house, I got a new client today. Woo! And then run around for a bit. It's a thing, right? It kind of just makes it changes the it changes the energy in the air, or something like that. And I think that that's kind of quite important. Otherwise, you've just sat there for 4 days on your own at your computer in the same position and nothing is ever different. And that's where the unhealthiness kind of starts to creep in with that. And particularly if your propensity is to be on your own, like me, then you've got to acknowledge that sometimes changing that, no matter how difficult that is actually the healthiest thing to do. Because otherwise you can, like I said right at the start, kind of start to create this own reality or this own negative, this own kind of negative narrative for yourself. And that is not good, right? It's also not true. Yeah, we all have rubbish days. That's a fact of business. It doesn't define who you are or mean that that's how everything is. So, okay. So there we go. And obviously you can message me, right? I'm always there. I'm always here. I love a DM me. Don't voice note me though. That's reserved for pretty much one person in my life, and please don't do that. But yeah, send me a message. Tell me what's up. Tell me how you feel. Tell me the good days and the bad days, because it's good. And this is how conversation starts. And that's what I like. So yeah, DMs are always open on LinkedIn and Instagram. And I hope that today has helped you maybe feel a little bit better about the way that you feel. Just by normalizing this and you knowing that everybody feels like this sometimes, but there are things that you can do to help yourself feel better, and it's perfectly normal. It's just perfectly normal because you're a human being and we're not designed to be totally on our own all the time. So there are lots of options out there. So there we go. Go touch some things in shops. Feel the textures and smile at all the staff. All right. I will see you next week. Lots of love as ever. Bye. Thank you for listening to Life in Business. Please make sure that you subscribe or follow so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you enjoyed today's show, please leave a review, as it helps others to find the podcast and spread the word that there's an easier way to do business. If you want to chat with me about today's episode or suggest a topic for the future, I would love to hear from you. You can find me on Instagram @Libby Langley. See you next week.